In theory, the perfect mate for a narcissist would be somebody that is completely compliant. It'd be kind of red pill, what red pill wants, honestly. Somebody that is completely submissive, somebody that is completely compliant, somebody that idolizes them and has blind faith in them, never upsets them, never frustrates them, and has no opinion of their own. Their world revolves around them. That would be the ideal perfect mate for a narcissist. Even if the narcissist got that, they would get bored and frustrated and they'd go on to the next shiny new thing because that's what they have to have. Even if they get that constant praise and validation, it's boring to them and they need the change. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pink Pill. I am your host, Jamie Lynn, and I am joined in the studio with my producer, my engineer, the big man on campus, Mr. Travis Flesher. Welcome back.
Howdy, everyone. I'm back, but like on this side this time instead of the other side.
I know you were a guest 2 episodes ago, and I loved having you on. I love having you here because you're just so easy to talk to, and I feel like I'm able to deliver better information when I have somebody to bounce things off of. So I kind of he wasn't supposed to be on my show today, but I kind of drug him in.
I'm happy to be here.
I gave you cookies and made you feel
Yes,
guilty.
I have a Red Bull in my system and I had a crumble cookie, not a sponsor, should be though. And I'm ready to go wired.
I feel like I should definitely be a sponsor for Crumble Cookie because I put a lot of people onto them.
I mean,
yeah.
You just got to give them the food once. And
I know.
Then it's all
I know
over.
It's kind of an easy plug.
Yeah.
It's not an easy sell. Well, I wanted to, today's episode is something that I really wanted to focus on. So for those of you that don't know, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And one of the things that I specialize in is my work with narcissism. So really kind of narcissistic abuse recovery. And so a lot of people have, there's a lot of misinformation about narcissism, what makes somebody a narcissist, and what are the signs of narcissism. And today, I'm going to be going over 5 uncommon narcissistic traits for men. I did one for women, and now I'm going to balance that out and do one for men. So we're just going to kind of jump right in and see what happens. The first thing I want to say is the term narcissism is completely overused. Okay, everybody has narcissistic traits and tendencies. So just if you're seeing a few of these things, it doesn't necessarily make somebody a narcissist. You need to see these things laced within the pattern of the narcissistic cycle abuse, alongside some other things like grandiosity, sense of superiority, lack of empathy, lack of remorse. Like those are the big things, the big ticket items that you really kind of want to take a look at. And look at my other videos if you want some more information on those things. But let's jump right in, shall we? Okay.
Sorry, I was not half paying attention. I got a text message, but yes, I'm ready.
Okay, I love it. Okay, let's go. So, narcissistic red flag number 1 for men is they don't know they're losing.
I would like to hear more about that one.
Okay, it's kind of weird, and I'm going to do my best to explain this, but in order to understand this red flag, you need to understand how a narcissist views themselves and views the world. See, narcissists have no concept of how people perceive them. They have a distorted perception of themselves and the world around them. They believe they're superior to others, like that they're more intelligent, they're more attractive, they're more successful than other people. So they don't perceive that there is any wrongdoing on their part. So anything the narcissist does is, by their own nature and their own narcissistic defense, is going to be great. So they could be, I'll give you kind of an example. They might have a really bad business idea and a lot of people know it sucks, but they think it's great because their narcissism prevents them from being objective. Their narcissism prevents them from taking criticism or feedback from other people. So what they'll do is the narcissistic defense will tell themselves that other people are just jealous of them. They're trying to sabotage them, that whatever they do is going to be successful and other people just need to get on board. And this business, let's just say the narcissist goes forward with this business adventure, which they most likely will. Let's say it crashes and burns. And the world around them can clearly tell that they've lost, can clearly tell that this was a bad idea. The narcissist will not be able to receive that information, that criticism, or that feedback. Their narcissism protects them from doing that. And what they will do, and everybody will be able to see it except them, because that is how they see themselves, and they can't be objective enough to receive any kind of criticism or feedback. Does that kind of make sense? It's kind of a hard one to explain.
I was gonna say, like, that just sounds like somebody who just like can be misconstrued as someone who just really wants what their idea to succeed. But I guess it's like delusion.
Well, it is delusional, and like that's why you have to look at these traits within the concept of a narcissistic pattern, because somebody could embody this that is maybe in denial, but with narcissism, nothing they do is wrong. Nothing they do is ever bad. Most people at period, and they're like this across the board. So it's not just going to be this one bad business adventure. It's going to be this in everything that they do, this inability to be objective and to see any kind of shortcomings that they might have. There's a tendency to just say, well, you're jealous, or you hate me, or you're trying to sabotage me. You'll get that kind of verbiage from the narcissist. And it'll be like that across the board. Whereas like your average Joe might have a moment of this, but they're still able to take constructive criticism and feedback in areas of their life. And eventually, if they want to be successful, they tend to be more open to the ideas of others.
So you'd say like narcissism as a diagnosis is about many different things pointing to narcissism, not any specific thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people see traits and they're like, let's just say somebody's having a moment of selfishness. Well, technically that would be a red flag for narcissism, right? But like, can't everybody have moments of that? There's a big difference between somebody having a moment and then a pattern of behavior that's pervasive across multiple settings, multiple people, and time. And like a personality disorder is pervasive, meaning it happens across multiple settings, multiple different relationships. It's not just this one-off thing that you'll see with most people. Most people might have moments or bouts where things aren't going well for them, where they might be a little selfish, where they might be a little bit more defensive. But over the course of time, they tend to kind of ebb and flow through those things. Whereas narcissism, it's a constant. And you'll see that alongside of other things like lack of remorse, no empathy, zero introspection, right? There's zero introspection with narcissism, period. So that's one of the ones. Let's move on to, let's see. Okay, this one's a fun one. So narcissistic red flag number 2 for men is something called ever presence. Any idea what that is, Trav?
Like they have eyes everywhere, like a god?
Kind of. So ever presence just means the victim is unable to escape their presence, the narcissist's presence in their mind. Everything about the victim's environment is associated with the narcissist. And the narcissist wants to constantly remind the victim of their presence, whether that's directly or indirectly. And they do fun, crazy things to invoke that emotional response with their victim. And that's what we call ever presence. So narcissists love to do this when you guys have broken up. But the victim doesn't really know that until they've broken up with the narcissist. This thing isn't really triggered inside the victim until there's been a breakup. And then they're like, oh my God, I see the narcissist everywhere. It's everywhere I look. I can't seem to get away. It's in my mind. That's because the narcissist actually did some pretty intentional things to kind of hook you back in, to incite that emotional addiction in you and make it really difficult for you to leave. And they do that through sight, smell, and all kinds of things. So let's look at it like maybe a sight trigger. So a sight trigger might be, well, they left their CD at my house. I'm really kind of like aging myself here. Remember when you break up? I left my CD in your house, and so you'll look around your room and you'll see the sweater that they left there, or you'll see the bedspread that they bought for you. And all these things remind the victim and create usually like fond memories of the narcissist. And they do that also because they're trying to create a reason to contact you later. They're trying to create a Hoover for you later, a reason to come back. So it's a way to maintain that attachment to you mentally and emotionally. Another trigger that kind of coincides with ever presence is smell. Smell is a really powerful one. So, you ever like a cologne associated with somebody and it just kind of takes you back to a memory or a person or a time? Narcissists are really good at capitalizing on that trait for their victims, and they like to wear the same thing over and over and over again, narcissistic men, because it reminds that victim, it takes them back there, and it makes it likely for the victim to contact them.
It sounds like to me that you're like there's this like narcissistic playbook that you're like referencing when you say narcissists do this, because I could see where like would eventually say like, oh yeah, like in their head, I got to get her to remind her of me, but they're not thinking like. I mean, I feel like these are very specific like rules that happen, but it's never this cut and dry. So how
It
do you?
actually is.
So like you have evidence of like people.
So I actually am writing a book called The Narcissist Playbook.
Oops, I just spoiled the title then.
No, not at all. It's
I'll take
great.
credit. Thank you.
It's great. Because it is so predictable. It's so predictable. A lot of people think that this disorder is incredibly mysterious. It's really not. They all do the same shit.
But how? Like how? Is it a learned behavior?
So it goes one of two ways, actually. So it's either instinctual, okay, where it's just your instinct. It's something within them, their narcissism, that kind of causes them to act in a certain way. It's just like if I was to take, like, look at any kind of personality disorder. Borderlines do the same thing as well.
They have the same logic paths, I guess.
Sure, we have the same categories because these things are kind of predictable. We tend to see the same things. Narcissism is no different. We just don't think of it in terms like that. Look at somebody with generalized anxiety disorder, present the same way. Look at somebody with panic disorder, presents the same way.
That's why it's categorizable. It's because they're so similar. Otherwise, it would just be a crazy person. You would just call them a crazy person.
So these traits, but their pattern too, like I can't even tell you how many victims I've worked with and I was like, this is what he's going to do next. Predictable. I might not know the exact verbiage or the exact way, but I can tell you when he's going to come back around. I can tell you when he's going to use guilt. I can tell you when he's going to use his kids. Like if I know the case, I know exactly what this guy's going to do. And so they're pretty predictable. And that's why I want to write a book being like, hey, this is what they're going to do, guys.
Can't wait for the audiobook. Listen to
it. So smell is a big trigger. In the age of social media, digital triggers are huge when it comes to ever presence. So the narcissist will use social media as a way to maintain a constant presence in the victim's life. So they might bombard the victim with like messages, emails, social media interactions, ensuring that they remain like a constant presence in the victim's life. And they'll even do this through other people. And look, this is why it's such a good idea to block your narcissist, because they'll use other people and they are banking on the fact that their victims are watching their social media. They're banking on it, and they can almost sense when you are. There's kind of like this kind of knowing that they have, and this like energetic like pull that they get, you know, when you're giving kind of like your attention towards them. And I feel like they can feel or sense that. That might sound a little wonky, but
I mean, if it's a disorder or a diagnosis, then it's really kind of it's the obvious next step for them. It's like they have the tools at their disposal, and because they think a certain way, they just use those specific tools.
Absolutely, you know, and you know they're doing things even after a breakup to incite an emotional reaction from you. So anything that is going to frustrate you or even make you happy, they prefer negative over positive, though. They prefer negative emotional responses over positive. It has a stronger like reward system for them. So, you know, that's why let's say a narcissist discards you and you see them in their new relationship and they're posting all about it on social media. Predictable. You know, or I've seen those victim narcissists where they just like to go silent and not post at all because they're just stoic and above it all. You know, it's still a way to get the victim to reach out to be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a metaphor because I'm still struggling to understand like how it's so predictable, and I think your audience might too, because like I think of it as like you have two people, you have like a murderer and a pacifist, and they both are given the option to have a taser gun or a gun. Both of them have the option to kill somebody. right? But then the pacifist will grab the taser to protect themselves. The murderer will grab the
Right. Well, the prediction is this. It's not the method. It's knowing that they will. I don't know if they're going to grab the taser or the gun, but I know they're going to do something. So, like, I guess in order to kind of understand this a little bit better, you have to go into the narcissistic cycle of abuse, which is the prediction. That's where I'm basing a lot of this off of. So, when somebody is meeting a narcissist, they're in the idealization phase where the victim can say and do nothing wrong. The narcissists put the victim on a pedestal, and they're the knight in shining armor. They're selling them a dream. They're selling them an illusion. I know exactly what's going to happen next is they're going to falter. They're going to fumble and they're going to fall. That's what's going to happen next. That period only lasts so long. And the next stage of that, which is, again, easy to predict if you're dealing with a narcissist, is going to be the discard or the devaluation. And that's where you're getting these slow cuts. That's where people are experiencing double binds. They can't say or do anything right. And that's where they experience this, which is going to be my next point, okay? So my next red flag is not about the narcissist. It's about you. It's about what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and that's hypervigilance. Not every red flag is going to be something that you need to look for the other person. This red flag, hypervigilance, is what you need to be attuned to within yourself. If you're feeling increasingly anxious, increasingly confused, if you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around a person, you are most likely dealing with a narcissist. And you need to be really careful. You need to check in with yourself about how you're feeling around a person. And this is around a specific person, not just your general overall mood, anxious personality. It's something in this person is, well, I don't know if I can say this because I don't know how this person is going to react. Or I don't feel like I can be myself around them because I don't know if this person is going to punish me or reward me. Those are the things that I want you to pay attention to. You as the victim are really attuned to their meta communication, their nonverbal communication, and you're trying to pick up on the little nuances to measure their mood. And those are some of the tells of hypervigilance that you need to pay attention to.
I feel like people need to trust their instincts a lot more. I feel like,
I agree.
After however many years of evolving, we've had to get pretty intuitive on whether or not someone's going to kill us.
I agree. When I did that podcast with He Who Will Remain Nameless, where I almost didn't post it. Yeah, Voldemort. I was having a lot of hypervigilance, and I was like, because remember you and I talked afterwards, and I was like, yeah. I don't know what's going on. I can't really figure this out, but there was something about it that was really off to me. And I didn't have the words for it quite yet because he blindsided me with some of the stuff that he said. And I was like, I didn't think that I was going to be dealing with it. I wasn't mentally prepared for it, And then it wasn't until afterwards that I was able to process it. And I was like, that guy was a narcissist. Like, that's why I was so, triggered by it. And the world doesn't know it yet. The world doesn't know that that's who this guy is yet because he's coming across like a hero. And a lot of victims a lot of, he's in his white knight stage.
He has a lot to learn.
He's got a lot to learn. I'm sure we'll cross paths again, but probably not in the same way.
You'll have one of your patients talking about him or something.
I just know that I'm sure we'll meet again, but under different circumstances. But again, like that, he is the kind of guy that has no idea of the discord that he creates, no idea of how other people pursue him. He just thinks he's great. He's amazing, right? And he's a very inexperienced young man that thinks he knows it all. That's what I mean. Like, no idea that he's losing, no accountability, no feedback from others, like just oblivious to it all. He's a very young man and knows everything, So hypervigilance is definitely one of the things that I want you to pay attention to. The victim is creating kind of like this pattern of appeasement. And this leads to a lot of self-doubt and a lot of diminished self-worth because you're prioritizing the narcissist's needs and desires over your own well-being. So it's important for you to recognize your own feelings of anxiety and unease because that's usually a warning sign that there's a toxic dynamic or that you're dealing with a narcissist. So yes, trying to say and do everything to make somebody happy. Big sign of hypervigilance. Okay, on to the next red flag. That is going to be future faking. Have you ever heard of that before?
Never. It sounds interesting.
It is interesting. It's one of my favorites because, again, it's really rare and people don't really call it out or recognize it. I mean, I've got some fun stories of when people used to do this one with me. Future faking. Narcissists engage in future faking to manipulate or control their victims. And they do this as a way to keep them hopeful and invested in the relationship. So in my last episode, when I was talking about narcissistic women, I always said that hope is deadly. And it is. It is deadly when you're in relationships like this because it's the thing that keeps you coming back. Will they change? Will it get better? And future faking is all about false promises. It's about keeping your hope up. It's about saying whatever and doing whatever it takes to just keep the victim in. But there's no effort behind the words. So future faking is, you're painting a rosy picture of the future. And the narcissist is really trying to distract their victims from the realities of the present moment. Like, let's just say you guys had a huge blow up, a huge fight, and they're like, babe, like, in a year, it's not going to be like this. We're going to be in this big house, and I'm going to be taking care of you, and you're not going to have to work this hard, and da 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 da. Meanwhile, they're not looking for a job. You're doing all the housework, and you're not seeing any kind of steps in that direction to actually create the future that they're talking about. Right? It's one thing to say it and then have the action follow through with that, but future faking is just the words, no action. Okay, it's just a way to keep your hope up. Here's a good example of future faking, and I see narcissists do this all the time. They take their women house hunting.
Wow.
Yeah, house hunting.
It's like a new form of gaslighting in a way.
Yeah. So it's like, and they do this really when things are not going well, or they do this at the very beginning of the relationship where they're trying to like ensnare you. So, they'll take you through different neighborhoods and they'll be like, we're going to have that house. This is where our kids are going to go to school. You're going to get a maid and a nanny, and I'm going to take you on Rodeo Drive, and I'm going to take you shopping, right? All things to get you hooked on this idea of something that doesn't exist. And then these women put all their hope and they put all their excitement into this future that takes them away from the reality of what they're currently in. Meanwhile, the person that they're with isn't really doing anything to create that future or that reality, and nothing in their present is changed. But the woman is so sold on this dream that that's where she is mentally, and she doesn't really accept her current reality. She's hoping and wishing for something else, and then continues to invest in the relationship, continues to stick it out, only to find that it's completely fruitless and goes nowhere. And that's future faking.
Wow. I feel like that's actually a really easy thing to do.
It is a really easy thing to
scary.
do. It's super scary because a lot of these things that narcissists do require zero effort.
It's just like it's a word here, it's a phrase there, it's a promise there.
Yeah,
it happens. It can happen to a victim without them even realizing.
Well, like if a victim actually realized that they wouldn't be dealing with it. That's what so many people don't get, right? It's like, how do you get into these relationships? Well, because they don't really present that way. If somebody came along and was like, hey, I'm gonna steal your money, I'm gonna treat you like shit, I'm gonna cheat on you, and would you like to date? Most people would run for the hills.
I feel like there should be victims of narcissists. This might be coming from a bad place, but the intention's good. Victims of a narcissist dating app.
Ooh,
because like now you have the men who are hurt by narcissistic women and the women who are hurt by narcissistic men, and now they know the identifiers. And then ideally, you think that they would just be the perfect match the next time.
You would think, but you know where my brain went when you said that is like, ooh, trauma bonding really bad.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, you're the registered therapist, all right.
I was like, oh God, bonding over the pain. Like I would say heal first. And when you heal, you'll be less tolerant of these things later on. Like it'll be a natural repellent. Like once you heal, these things become way less attractive.
Definitely, you're like, how could I have ever been in that situation? Like I can't even believe it.
Oh my God, I know.
I'm
including myself in this because believe me, I'm just like, oh my God, why? Like, how did that happen? And it's just like, when you have, a lot of it comes from a lack of self-love. When you don't really honor and respect yourself, you'd be surprised what you entertain. If you've dealt with unhealthy relationships, or you didn't learn to have a healthy relationship, or people like poured a lot of negativity into you and you took the bait, you ended up believing that, you won't really expect anything better, or even really know that anything, you won't have the hope that anything better is out there, you know? So your self-worth really becomes wrecked. And then when you entertain what you think you're worth. And it's just kind of a really negative, toxic cycle. It's sad to watch.
Is narcissism a spectrum, or
Hmm.
is it a yes or a no?
So I would say that, like, I think narcissism and impasse is the spectrum, which might sound weird to say, but I think you have empaths on one side and narcissists on the other side of the spectrum, and then people are kind of somewhere in between. And I think they're both a response to trauma. I think empaths had to be really attuned to their abusers, and that's why they learn to placate behavior and appease, and they become really attuned to the emotions of other people and felt what they felt because it helped them survive. And I think on the other end, you have people that are incredibly narcissistic that don't feel things because it was how they became very self-centered, don't feel empathy, remorse because it propelled them, and helped them survive whatever their trauma was. And then you have kind of a spectrum of narcissism and then a spectrum of empathic people, and then you have your kind of normal range in the middle.
I think you need to do an episode on the perfect mate for a narcissist and a perfect mate for an empath. Because I feel like
Oh
there's
my
like a yin
God.
yang Venn diagram crossover of like
There
who would be the
is.
like, okay, this is a lost cause narcissist, he needs
Yeah.
to find love too, you know?
Well, here's the thing with that, they'll never be happy. There is no perfect mate for a narcissist. Now, the narcissist doesn't know that. They have no idea, but there is nothing that can ever satisfy a narcissist because of their black and white thinking. So a narcissist looks at things as all good or all bad. This is part of the idealization phase of the cycle of abuse. Pedestal, off the pedestal. You did something good, now you're on the pedestal. You did something bad that I don't like, off the pedestal. And being off the pedestal could just mean I'm bored with you and I want something else. Just narcissistic supply, and they've kicked you off the pedestal. You've done, in their eyes, you've done something bad, but in a normal, healthy person's eyes, you've done nothing wrong. That wouldn't frustrate or irritate a normal person, but you're not dealing with a normal person, you're dealing with a narcissist. There is no perfect mate for a narcissist. There is nothing that will ever please or satisfy a narcissist because of their constant need for narcissistic supply and validation. In theory, the perfect mate for a narcissist would be somebody that is completely compliant. It'd be kind of red pill, what red pill wants, honestly. Somebody that is completely submissive, somebody that is completely compliant, somebody that idolizes them and has blind faith in them, never upsets them, never frustrates them, and has no opinion of their own. Their world revolves around them. That would be the ideal perfect mate for a narcissist. Even if the narcissist got that, they would get bored and frustrated and they'd go on to the next shiny new thing because that's what they have to have. Even if they get that constant praise and validation, it's boring to them and they need the change.
Sounds like a 1950s housewife that you just described.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
I
Why?
know.
Hmm.
But that's a really good question. And the perfect mate for an empath? I'll have to think about that one.
Perhaps a different episode then.
Yeah, perhaps. I feel like just somebody that's caring and nice, probably doesn't take advantage of them. Like
Oh, what a
somebody that's
concept.
respectful and respects their boundaries, but also encourages them. Like being an empath, like a lot of people think they're an empath and they're not, which I think is really interesting. A lot of people think that they're because they have feelings that somehow they're empathic, or they think that they feel things stronger than other people. And that would characterize an empath, but most people aren't actually like that.
I meet a lot of pseudo empaths that are like, "Oh my god, I'm so sad for you." It's like you're making it about you now, not even about the person.
Exactly.
An empath would be there, supportive, right?
Exactly. An empath requires nothing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing. And those are hard behaviors to call out, right? When somebody is like acting like they're caring, but they're really trying to get the care themselves.
Yeah. You see it a lot these days with virtue signaling and a lot of social issues.
You know, I had a client actually who's currently dealing with this. His brother unfortunately passed away recently, and the brother's girlfriend, had not been the healthiest in the relationship. and is going to the family to get all the care, and they're not able to heal or focus on what they need to do, because it's take care of me. She has other places to go, but wants to insert herself in their home. Um, things like that. It's a hard thing to call out because I'm sure she's got some grief as well, but it's a way to capitalize on the emotions of other people.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great example.
Hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My last and final point, my last and final red flag, is they call you the narcissist. This is a big tell. They call you the narcissist. And this is kind of going back to my earlier point of how they see things. Like, a real true narcissist is incapable of perceiving any wrongdoing. They're not capable of introspection or self-reflection. It does not exist. So they're doing this because it's their own projection. So if you have done something wrong in their eyes, it doesn't mean you actually even did something wrong. It's just they perceive you doing something wrong probably all the time. And if you've done something that frustrates or irritates them, they will call you a narcissist because it serves their agenda to do so. It makes you question your self-worth. It deflects from their own negative behavior. And then if you have, and here's why this works, if you actually have a normal range person, most people self-reflect and want to take accountability for their actions. So if you have somebody calling you a narcissist, most likely you're going to be like, oh, damn, did I do something wrong? Like, was my behavior narcissistic? Like, let me take a look at that, right? That's a good sign that you're not a narcissist if you're doing that, because a real narcissist does not do that, guys. They don't have the ability to do that. They're like, yep, you're a narcissist. I'm great. I'm fine. It's all you. You're the bad one. You're the wrong one. That's usually a sign that somebody is more narcissistic. If for even a minute, guys, you have questioned if you are a narcissist, you probably are not. Okay?
That's a great point.
You probably are not. Okay? So that's something that I really kind of want everybody to pay attention to. They're really doing this because they want the victims to question their own reality. And this kind of goes along, gaslighting and stuff like that. So I just want everybody to pay attention to that. So those are my 5 red flags. So
I feel like from the guy's perspective, because I was like there for the woman's perspective, I feel like it's way more obvious for the guys. I feel like we have more examples in our daily lives, or at least they're being called out more when men are narcissists.
Yeah, I think when we hear the term narcissist, we tend to kind of associate that with men more, right? But that is not necessarily true. A lot of women are narcissistic, but they get labeled borderline.
Oh, why do you think that is?
Because a lot of people don't recognize it. They don't really know. Like, a lot of people don't really know what narcissism is. Like, I can't even tell you how many girls call their ex a narcissist.
Every time they break up?
Pretty much everyone, right? How many men call their ex a narcissist?
They just say crazy.
Right,
or
crazy.
If anything, right?
Yeah, something like that. So, when a girl gets hurt feelings, she's most likely going to call her ex a narcissist. Like that happens all the time. And so I try to create some material around what narcissism really is, because once you really get into disorder, it is fucking fucked up. It's not some dude that hurt you and cheated on you. It is a beast in and of itself. It's highly manipulative. It's really destructive. It's bigger than somebody just hurting your feelings. Or behaving badly. Even people that behave badly are not necessarily narcissistic.
I always think about that person's a narcissist, and then all of a sudden in their next relationship, they're the happiest relationship ever. Mm-hmm. They have like a wife and like they got married, they have children, and like there is no problem. So like, I wonder who's the real problem in a way.
Yeah, well, and sometimes like we've all seen those guys that have. Sometimes people don't act right because they're in the wrong relationship.
Right.
Right, and they're with the wrong person, and then they move on to somebody else, and they're completely different, like you said.
Can you have temporary narcissism? Like,
well,
where you're so deluded in a situation that you genuinely are a narcissist, but it takes getting out of it.
No, you can't. Because, again, that's a great question, but no, you actually can't, because you can't turn narcissism on and you can't turn it off. What you're getting is a period or a moment in time.
So what would you call that period and moment of time where you have the demonstrate narcissism, but you're not a narcissist. Just
You might just be
circumstance.
being an asshole.
So that's when you say he's an asshole. Okay.
Like if I have somebody that's probably like not into a girl, he's probably going to be a bit more selfish. He's probably going to care less about the relationship, but that doesn't make him narcissistic. It makes him just not that into you. And these are like fine lines to draw, right? They're really hard because for that victim, for that girl, it can feel, well, he's selfish. He never thinks about me. He doesn't take care of the kids and da-da-da-da. But in, other areas of his life, he's not really like that, or he's not like that with her all the time either. And like he has empathy, he has remorse, like he has these things. He's just kind of a dick to you, right? Not saying that that's okay or that you should tolerate that if you're on the receiving end of it. Narcissist or not, if somebody's treating you poorly in the relationship, I would care less about the label and more about your own, like prioritize your own self-care and your own mental and emotional like sanity. Like don't even worry about the labels. We get so caught up on the labels. Like if somebody's treating you poorly, I don't care if they're narcissists or not. I just get out. I just end the relationship.
Yeah. People during breakups want to like find the reason or this like it's because he's a narcissist. It wasn't because they were just incompatibility that implies that there's two wrong, like they're both wrong in a way.
Well, I think people like when and here's the thing too, there's so much information about narcissists that like everybody's like talking about the traits of narcissism and they lack the comprehension of the personality disorder that it is. And so when people see these traits, again, they're like, oh, well, that was a trait, so he must be a narcissist or she must be a narcissist.
It's cumulative, right? It's not just a single instance.
You need multiple traits across multiple settings, like multiple. And I always look for patterns. That's why I say this stuff is really predictable because narcissism does follow a very specific pattern of behavior. I might not necessarily know how they're going to devalue you, but I know it's coming. And I know it's probably going to look like this.
It's like inherent to the definition of narcissism. Narcissism existed because of an observation of patterns, not because of the other way around. It wasn't just created and then they found the patterns.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. That was really good. Do you feel like you've ever known a narcissist?
My first girlfriend was a narcissist.
Wow.
And when you said, it often gets diagnosed as, bipolar.
Or borderline.
Or borderline personality, like it was not right, but it was definitely narcissism that kept our relationship together. We were broken up, but she was dating someone else, or we were together, but we were broken up, but she was dating someone else.
They
but
always
we were together.
are.
So
they
it's just
always
like,
are.
And then she like dated my, messed around with my best friend at the time, but we were still together. It was really confusing. Like, and this is the first girlfriend I had, so I didn't really understand dynamics, relationship stuff. So.
Well, that's because she needs constant supply. That's what that is. You need narcissistic supply. So narcissism, they always have a backup. They always have a backup because they have to have that constant narcissistic supply, which is, well, if you go, Travis, I have to have a backup. I have to get that validation, that emotional support, and that attention from somewhere. And you have upset me or you have failed to meet my needs in some way. So I'm going to make sure that I have this over here.
Are you familiar with the spinning plate theory from Mr. Rollo Tomasi?
No, please explain.
So Rollo Tomasi, a godfather of Red Pill
Yes.
and author of the Rational Male books. Go read for education purposes to understand what is being talked about. But he talks about how women, and he generalizes it.
Sure.
It's called the spinning plate, where they always are working on somebody. Right now they're dating a guy, but their DMs aren't off. Right? Their DMs are open. They're still placating, responding half-assed to a person just to keep the interest, right?
Okay.
But when it's the other way around, the woman wants no DMs from other women, right? So in the book, he generalizes that all women are sharing these narcissistic traits. Like it's almost like inherently women equals narcissists.
Okay.
Is the way it's described in the books.
Well,
and I didn't really think that way when I was reading it or listening to it, but it seems like the more you describe what a woman narcissist is the ideal woman for a red pillar.
Well, so he's not completely wrong, okay? But again, this is where they miss the mark, okay? He's basing this off of his personal experience. It's his own projection, okay? It's what he has experienced in his own frustration with women. And what he's doing is he's ascribing that to an entire gender, okay? Women that are narcissistic will absolutely do that. You know who else would do that? Women that aren't that into you.
That's true.
Okay? Women that are into you don't do that. but he's not even open to the idea that that alternative exists. And that's why his judgment's really clouded. And he forms these broad generalizations against an entire gender because he's had some negative interactions. And he misses the mark.
I think so, but I also have not read it past his first book, so he might have amended some of his ideas, but you never know.
Speaking of Rollo Tomasi,
Yes.
they did review me yesterday. They had some clips.
I think we should watch it.
I think we should watch it too.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Physical improvements. Like, I don't hear, any talk on red pill platforms about a man getting a hair transplant, but if she's had plastic surgery, she's an HO3.
HO3.
HO3. Yeah, I'm learning the terminology.
HO3.
304.
It's 304 on the calculator upside down.
By going and getting fit in the gym, right? Building their muscles, right? But again, that counter isn't true for a woman. If she's too fit, she's too masculine, and now she's in her masculine energy. So shame on her. But if she's had too much work, then she's, conceited, narcissistic, and HO3.
Okay, HO3. So
HO3.
So wait, go ahead. What are you saying?
Just saying, but you still get the attention, you still get the subscribers. Nobody is cheering men on to do those things.
Okay.
If anything, they're being shamed for.
So anything,
it's like toxic masculinity.
Guys are coming out pretty openly about beard transplants and hair transplants now.
I was just about to
so
say
that's
Myron Gaines,
literally Myron
and
said
Justin
it.
as well.
Not only Justin, not only that. John Orlando, who owns this place.
Yeah.
He got what's it called, a sponsorship for it, right? For hair transplant. So it's not that men are saying that's unattractive. And the other thing with the plastic surgery is this: she's right in this one case. There's a lot of dudes who like girls who have plastic surgery, so fucking subscribe to their OnlyFans and then call them whores publicly. And by the way, Jamie, it's 304. It's not HO3. It's 304. Toes spelled backwards. But I actually agree with her in that. I like the whole idea of being too fit. Now, there is too fit to where she is masculine.
For sure.
But I love, for me, and this is so funny because I talked to Bilzerian about this. He likes very young and very natural, and I like boob jobs, and I like girls who have six packs. And generally, six packs and boob jobs are not at 20 years old.
Well,
What do you think?
I have some thoughts. Poor Trav. I'm so sorry you had to be on that show with me.
I just had to be there. I was forced to be there.
You poor thing.
I'm all right. I think I've healed since then.
Okay, I don't want to traumatize you anymore. I bought you cookies. You can't be that traumatized.
And a Red Bull, thank you.
Okay, so I have a few things. So number one, you're proving my point, and I don't even think you guys knew that. Okay. What they did, this is a misdirect, guys, and I want to teach you guys about this. So my point was something larger, and they decided to focus on something smaller and misdirect you. My point is the double standard that happens in the red pill community, where they are shaming women and calling them narcissistic for making physical improvements about their body. And my counter to that was, we don't shame men when they get hair transplants. We don't shame men when they're on TRT. We don't shame them for doing that. But there's a lot of men that will call women 304s.
You're learning.
I'm learning, yeah. For doing those things. And what they did is they misdirected, and he said, "We are talking about it." Okay, well, great. So Fresh and Fit acknowledged it, and you don't have a problem with it, but that doesn't negate the fact that there's a double standard. That doesn't take away from the fact that you're still shaming women and calling them narcissistic and self-centered, and you're and making fun of the work that they've had done and criticizing them for the work that they've had done. So these two things don't go together. Well, we are acknowledging it. Okay, well, great. I'm glad that you guys can acknowledge that, but a lot of men aren't acknowledging that. A lot of men in the red pill community still aren't acknowledging that. And also he made the point that he's like, he even said, we don't get shamed for it. Yeah, thanks for proving my point. You don't get shamed for it, but women do. Women do get shamed for it. And the two of you on this show might not be shaming any women, but that doesn't negate the red pill influence and the negativity that is surrounded around women changing their body and how they're narcissistic and full of themselves for doing that. So you guys didn't challenge my point at all, not even in the slightest. In fact, what you did is you supported my argument. The other thing I want to say is this. I'm looking at these grown men schooling me on a colloquialism about the word hoe. How sad is that? And how silly is that? And how disgusting is that? You're grown men and you're laughing about calling women hoes. That's because that's the negative message that's on your platform, is to call women that. And because I said it incorrectly, now you want to school women on that? I really wish women would stop going on this show because it supports a very negative narrative of yourself. For men to even be calling you that is disgusting to me. And I'm glad I got it wrong because I don't buy into that bullshit.
Mic drop.
Anyway, this really gets my blood boiling. And it sucks when I see women on this show silent. It sucks when I see them silent. And I'm like, they're calling you hoe. Maybe not you specifically, but this is your female family. And you're showing up on this show and you're letting them like school another woman, an educated woman, a woman that is advocating for other women. They're schooling her on how to use the term appropriately or use the colloquialism appropriately. And you girls are laughing. It makes me sad. Makes me really sad. I hope that we can really create a change. And that's why I wanted to have Pink Pill. Because this narrative really needs to stop. I'm tired of seeing it, and I thought that we really need a different perspective, a healthy perspective. I have nothing personal against Rollo or Michael. They're actually very nice people in person, but what they preach is really harmful to the female gender. And I really hope that as women, we can stop supporting that. I don't know, Trav, any notes, any thoughts?
I think that in order to understand your side, you kind of have to understand, you have to at least hear their side.
Sure.
And I think it's very easy to do that. I mean, go and listen to his book and you can really clearly see where the arguments were like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like instantly, like these are normal things people see, and then they kind of break it down using their terminology and like their kind of things. And so it almost is like they have to redefine a lot of words in order for it to make a lot of sense. And usually you don't need to because the dictionary does that for you. So, but yeah, well, that's kind of my impression of the book when I first read it. I've only read the first book of all the installments, but to understand Jamie's perspective, absolutely read his book. And then go read her book. And then
that's not out that I'm still writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, guys, that about wraps it up for me today. I hope that this was educational. If you like this kind of content, if you feel like this is helpful, please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. It really does help me out so that I can have more free time to make content like this for you. I'd like to invest more time in that. I'd like to be here more, but I need you to like and subscribe and share my work if you're interested in doing that. Trav, as always, thank you so much for
thank you.
being here. I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
Follow me.
Please go to Travis's Instagram. Hit him up. He is full of bright ideas, and he's a good person to follow and does some cool like behind-the-scenes stuff with Sticky Paw Studios as well. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Guys, until next time, pop the pink pill.